Hi, Carlo. Hey, congratulations for the Kapre.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you too. So tell us, how does it feel that your short film is part of that bite-sized Halloween on Hulu?
It's just an absolute blast. So many films from all over the world, and being the only Filipino film that's on there, it's such an honor to kind of be able to share a little bit of my culture to to an American audience, through the Hulu audience. Because it's always been a dream of mine. Yeah, we have such a rich library of like myths and creatures. So to be able to share my favorite one, which is our gentle giant called the Kapre, has been an absolute thrill.
That is terrific to hear. Now, tell us about this Filipino legend. What is the original legend all about?
Yeah. So the Kapre is, I would say, one of the most famous, if not the most famous, creatures that we have. When I try to explain it simply to foreigners, I say, look, people have Bigfoot, people have trolls. In Europe, you've got the Sasquatch, you've got the Yeti up in the Himalayas, and also so to kind of simplify it and to paint, like a more vivid picture. That's how I initially describe it to people. But then I say, but look, the difference with our Bigfoot is that he's not quite like the rest of those other creatures. Like our Bigfoot lives in what we call a baleta tree. He's actually not a vicious creature. He's quite territorial. He's actually quite mischievous. But I think the trademark that our Kapre has, or our Bigfoot has, that the rest of the world doesn't, is that he's known for smoking a magical cigar, an enchanted cigar. So when I tell people that, they're like, oh, that's interesting. Like, okay. So it just goes to show like how we as Filipinos have kind of like built on that myth and kind of made it our own, and kind of created something that's quite colorful and put our own spin. So ask anybody, ask any Filipino, they'll absolutely know what a Kapre is, because he's basically like our, I don't know, our one of our main cultural symbols. So I'm just happy to share it to the rest of the world.
Is this a myth that's been around for generations, or people
Oh yeah,
have actually had sightings of it, like Bigfoot and the Yeti?
It's funny. I've had someone message me on Instagram and said, he goes, Carlo, do you know that when I was a kid I actually saw a Kapre? I'm like, no way. And these things are, I never scoff at when people tell me these things, like when they see spirits or our own version of elves, malignos, and things. I don't laugh at it, or I don't not believe them. I actually choose to believe, because I don't know. We live in such a part of the world wherein mysticism blends in harmoniously with our very rigid Catholicism. I'm not sure, and because of that, there's such a rich kind of like everyone's superstitious here. So everyone is just so. So the idea of the Capre has been around, for centuries now. As far back as Spanish times, and as far back even before then, even before they came in, there were already legends of that. So so the fact that it's a story that's been told through many generations, I think, speaks highly of the fact that, who knows, maybe it's real.
Tell me about the creature feature design of
Yeah.
of this. Is this something that you try to base on the myth, or is this something
Yeah.
that you had to conjure it yourself on what it should look like?
Yeah, it's a combination of what I had researched on, but with a lot of like creative license, and trying to put my own creative vision on it, alongside the collaboration with the production design team and the post team. I obviously, the Capra is a giant, so I wanted to be a giant. There are certain things that we felt we needed him to be, in that he needed to have Filipino features. Like, I didn't want him to look, it would just not make sense for him to look like a different race. I said, no, he has to have Filipino features, like maybe like, the way his nose looks, or the way his eyes are. So we cast a very Filipino looking actor to play the Capre, because I felt like, from a facial perspective, he had to look like one of us, like just very very Filipino, and very much local. And then from there we created around him. We wanted parts of his fur to have wooden textures. We had a giant centipede come out of his eye. That was a great idea from the post team. They just felt like they needed more texture around him. The production design team felt that he was a warrior. So if you look closely at the film, he's got a huge scar in the center of his face. So a combination of just actual history and actual historical descriptions of what the Kapre is, combined with our own creative twist on it.
Most excellent. And one last thing.
Sure.
Making it into like a comedic horror for yourself, was that easy? Because I do know that you've done horror before.
Yes. Yeah. I wanted to do as a filmmaker. I'm always about trying to do something different each time. I started out my horror career doing a found footage film, which is an absolute blast. And then from there, I segued into a modern ghost story called Sunod, which is obviously more serious. So if you see both those films, they're so tonally different from each other. And more so with the Kapre, there was a slightly selfish reason for me for wanting to do something that my kids could finally watch. It was a joke that my wife would always tell me, and she goes, "Yeah, you tell your kids you're a director, but they've never seen anything you've done." So a part of me wanted to do something that was closer along the lines of like, a Goosebumps, which is a series that I also always loved, and just something a bit more accessible and fun, because the Kapre by nature is not for me, vehemently evil creature. He's a fun guy, so I felt like telling that story in the tone of a horror comedy, I think would be the perfect way to get the message of the Kapre across. So I finally showed it to my kids, and thankfully they can say, "Oh yeah, I've seen something my dad did."
Well, we love it. It's hilarious, especially putting two Americans in the middle of nowhere, not realizing what local legends are actually like. So
that was very much intentional, and that was my way of kind of making it more accessible as well, by making the perspective through the eyes of two outsiders, because I knew that was what the audience would be coming in, outsiders. The audience would be through Hulu, mostly non-Filipino. So what better way to share that experience than through the eyes of two unsuspecting Americans.
Absolutely. Well, Carlo, thank you very much for speaking to us, and thank you for sharing your culture, your Filipino culture and legends. And I know Filipinos have a lot of cultural legends out there and mythical creatures. So hopefully you'll bring more of that onto screen down the road.
Yeah, that is the dream. So fingers crossed I get to do that. Thanks so much, Gig.
Hey, thank you. Hopefully we do this again.
All right, let's do it. All right. Thank you.